The sound of rain against my condo window had become my meditation. For the past 15 years, it had been the only constant in my life, a steady, indifferent rhythm that asked nothing, judged nothing, expected nothing. I sat at my small desk in the corner of my one-bedroom condo in West Calgary. Have you ever felt the weight of your past pushing down on your present, forcing you into a corner of quiet anonymity? This was my corner. Friday afternoon meant 3 final reports. Mrs. Nguyen from the bakery, the Singhs from the grocery shop, young Liam, the delivery driver, small accounts, simple work, honest work. My hands, though, moved across the keyboard with the same subconscious, muscle memory precision they'd once used to manage billion-dollar portfolios. Muscle memory doesn't forget, even when everything else does. The condo was quiet, except for the rain and the occasional creak of the old heater. No television, no music. I'd learned to appreciate silence over the years. It was honest. At least it didn't pretend to be something it wasn't. My phone buzzed on the desk. An unknown Montreal number. I almost didn't answer. I got enough spam calls from unknown numbers, but something in the sudden piercing buzz, a disruption of my perfect silence, made me reach for it. "Is this Mr. Brennan?" A woman's voice, professional, clipped. "Mr. Brennan, this is Catherine Whitmore from Blackwell & Partners. I'm calling regarding the estate of Elizabeth Harper." My hand froze over the keyboard. Elizabeth? That name. It was the forgotten language of my former life. A beautiful, sharp sound I hadn't allowed myself to think, let alone hear spoken aloud, in 15 years. Hadn't allowed myself to think it. I see. I managed. "I'm sorry to inform you that Elizabeth Harper passed away on Tuesday. The funeral is tomorrow at 2 at Notre-Dame-des-Neiges Cemetery in Montreal. Following the service, there will be a reading of the will at our offices at 4 Your presence is requested." The words seemed to come from very far away. Elizabeth was dead. The woman I'd loved more than my own life, the woman I'd destroyed my career for, the woman who'd never spoken to me again. And now, that silence was permanent. I had always hoped for a chance to tell her the truth one more time, to explain the sacrifice. Now, that door was slammed shut forever, leaving me alone with the choice I'd made and the consequences I hadn't earned. "Mr. Brennan, are you still there?" "Yes, I'm here. Will you be able to attend?" Every instinct, honed by 15 years of exile, screamed at me to decline. What business did the disgraced ex-husband, the convicted criminal who'd stolen from his own company, have at the funeral of the woman he'd loved and ruined? I'd seen the headlines. Finance Director Mr. Brennan, charged with fraud. They'd used my worst photo, making me look guilty even though I wasn't. But then, a flicker in the deep, quiet part of me, some stubborn, unextinguished ember of the man I'd once been, whispered, I owed Elizabeth this one final silent courtesy. I owed myself the chance to close the circle. "I'll be there," I heard myself say. After I hung up, I sat very still, watching the rain run down the window in irregular streams. Montreal. I hadn't been back to Montreal in 15 years. Hadn't seen Sophia, my daughter, in almost as long. The last time had been in a courtroom, her face white with shame as the judge read my sentence. She'd been 30 then, just starting to make a name for herself in the software industry. Now she'd be 45, a stranger. I closed my laptop and walked to the small closet where I kept my one good suit. Navy blue, slightly outdated, but well-maintained. I'd worn it to job interviews that never led anywhere, to meetings with probation officers, to the small accounting firm where I'd eventually found work doing taxes for people who paid in cash and didn't ask questions about my past. I held up the suit, checking for moths or stains. It would do. That night, I couldn't sleep. That night, sleep was impossible. I kept replaying the last time I'd seen Elizabeth. It was in her hospital room, 4 months after my sentencing. She was recovering from the stress-induced heart attack that had nearly killed her. Sophia had been there too, standing guard like a cold, unforgiving sentinel. "You need to leave," Sophia had said, her voice like broken glass. "You've done enough damage." Elizabeth had turned her face away, wouldn't look at me. That silence, the cold, final silence of the woman I adored, amplified by the bitter betrayal in my daughter's eyes. That hurt more than any words could have. I left. I took a bus, traveling as far from Montreal as I could. I started over with nothing. A 65-year-old man with a criminal record trying to remember how to be human. The next morning, I caught the early flight to Montreal. 5 hours of watching clouds and trying not to think. Below me, the world was a seamless white canvas of possibility. Up here, in this cramped, airless capsule, my past was a dark, suffocating force. 15 years had felt like 100. 15 years of carrying a lie that wasn't mine, of wearing the shame of a name I had discarded. The greatest loss wasn't the career or the money. It was the loss of the man Elizabeth had betrayed and the father Sophia had abandoned. A woman next to me tried to make small talk, something about visiting grandchildren, but I must have given off an aura of unavailability because she eventually stopped trying. Montreal looked different, bigger, shinier, more towers crowding the skyline. The rideshare driver who picked me up at Pearson chatted about the kangaroos in the housing market. I nodded in the right places, but wasn't really listening. I'd booked a room at a small hotel near the cemetery. Nothing fancy, just a place to change clothes and collect myself before the funeral. At 1:30, I put on my navy suit, knotted my tie with hands that only shook slightly, and took another cab to Notre-Dame-des-Neiges Cemetery. The rain had followed me from Edmonton, a fine mist that made everything look gray and indistinct. There were more cars than I'd expected. Elizabeth had built Harper Innovations from a small software startup into one of Australia's most successful tech firms. Of course, people would come. Board members, employees, business partners, politicians probably. I stayed at the back, hidden behind a large oak tree, watching from a distance. I could see the crowd gathered under a green canopy. Sophia stood at the front. Her hair was shorter than I remembered, and the black dress and severe heels made her look every inch the CEO she'd become. She was flanked by men in expensive suits. Beneath the mist and the gray sky, she was a monument of perfect composure, an impenetrable fortress of success. The service was brief. A minister spoke of legacy. Someone from the company spoke of Elizabeth's vision. Sophia stood perfectly still through all of it. Her face was composed, professional, a masterwork of control. My daughter had learned to wear masks well. She was a stranger forged in the fire of her mother's ambition. 15 years ago, I gave up everything to protect her from the truth. Now, I was about to walk into a glass room in the financial district and face the woman she had become. Would she still hate the man she thought I was? Or would she see the sacrifice in the eyes of the man I truly was? I didn't know the answer, and that uncertainty felt heavier than any prison sentence. I didn't approach, didn't let myself be seen. I didn't approach, didn't let myself be seen. When the service ended and people began filing back to their cars, I walked in the opposite direction, hands in my pockets, collar turned up against the mist. The law offices of Blackwell and Partners occupied the top 3 floors of a glass tower in the financial district. I arrived early habit from my old life and waited in the lobby, watching well-dressed people hurry past with briefcases and phones pressed to their ears. At 3:50, I took the elevator to the 30th floor. The receptionist looked up when I approached. "Name, please." "Thomas Brandon." Something flickered in her expression. Recognition. Distaste. She recovered quickly. "Conference room C." Down the hall, 3rd door on the right. The conference room was all glass and chrome with a view that stretched across downtown Montreal to the lake beyond. A long mahogany table dominated the center, surrounded by leather chairs. Several people were already seated, faces I half recognized from Elizabeth's business world. They stopped talking when I entered. I took a seat near the door, away from the main group. The chair was uncomfortable. Or maybe that was just me. I folded my hands on the table and waited. Sophia arrived exactly at 4. She moved with the same purposeful stride Elizabeth had once had, all business, all control. She walked directly to the head of the table, the seat that had probably been her mother's during board meetings, and sat down without looking around. Then she saw me. For just a moment, her composure cracked, her eyes widened slightly, and color drained from her face. Then the mask came back harder than before. "What are you doing here?" Her voice carried across the room, sharp enough to cut. "I was invited," I said quietly. "By Ms. Whitmore. This is family business. You gave up that right when you stole from Mom's company." Several people shifted uncomfortably. I kept my hands steady on the table, my voice calm. "I'm here because I was asked to be here." Sophia's jaw tightened, but before she could respond, the door opened and Catherine Whitmore entered. She was younger than she'd sounded on the phone, maybe mid-45s, with gray-streaked hair pulled back in a bun and glasses perched on her nose. She carried a leather portfolio and moved with quiet authority. "Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming. I'm Catherine Whitmore, senior partner at Blackwell & Partners, and I had the honor of being Mrs. Brennan's estate attorney for the past 15 years. She took a seat at the table, positioning herself between Sophia and me. "I know this is a difficult time, so I'll try to be as efficient as possible." She opened her portfolio and withdrew a thick document bound in dark blue covers. "The last will and testament of Elizabeth Brennan, executed on March 15th, 2021. Sophia sat back in her chair, her expression settling into something between satisfaction and entitlement. I recognized that look. It was the same one she'd worn when she'd won her first case as a corporate lawyer before she'd transitioned into management. Pride mixed with certainty that the world would arrange itself as it should. "Before we begin with the specific bequests," Mrs. Whitmore continued, "I want to read Mrs. Brennan's opening statement." She was quite insistent that this be read aloud in full before anything else. She adjusted her glasses and began to read in a clear, professional voice. "To those gathered here, if you are hearing this, then I am gone, and it's time for certain truths to be told. I have lived my life with many regrets, but perhaps none greater than my silence. I built a company, created jobs, made money. These things seemed important at the time, but I also destroyed a good man's life to protect my business, and I let my daughter grow up believing lies because the truth was inconvenient. This will is my attempt, inadequate as it may be, to finally set the record straight." The room had gone very quiet. Sophia's expression had shifted from confident to confused. Mrs. Whitmore continued reading. "Mr. Brennan did not embezzle money from Harper Innovations. I know this because I did." The words hung in the air like smoke. Someone gasped. Sophia's face had gone white. The entire world tilted on its axis in that single moment. 15 years of my life, the shame, the silence, the isolation, was erased by one sentence read aloud in a sterile conference room. But the look on Sophia's face, the absolute devastation of a truth she had built her entire life on, told me the sacrifice was not yet over. In 2009, Mrs. Whitmore read, "Our company was on the verge of collapse. We'd overextended on 3 major projects, and our cash flow was critical. I made the decision to redirect funds from our employee savings fund temporarily, I told myself, to keep us afloat. It was illegal. It was wrong. And it was all my doing. Brennan discovered what I'd done during a routine audit. He confronted me, threatened to go to the authorities. I begged him not to, not for my sake, but for Sophia's. She'd just joined the company. Any scandal would destroy her career before it even began. Brennan loved his daughter more than anything, So he made me an offer. He would take responsibility for the missing funds. He would claim he'd been embezzling for personal use. In exchange, I would ensure Sophia's future at the company, would groom her to eventually take over, would protect her from the fallout. I agreed. I let him sacrifice himself, his reputation, his entire life. I told myself it was for Sophia, for the company, for the hundreds of employees who depended on us. But really, it was cowardice. Brennan went to prison for crimes I committed. He lost his license, his career, his family, and I said nothing. I built my empire on his silence. Mrs. Whitmore paused, took a sip of water from the glass at her elbow. Sophia sat frozen, her hands gripping the edge of the table so hard her knuckles had turned white. The other people in the room weren't looking at me anymore. They were looking at her. I'm not seeking absolution, Mrs. Whitmore continued reading. There is none for what I've done, but the truth deserves to be known. Mr. Brennan is innocent of the charges brought against him. He is innocent of everything except loving his daughter too much. This will is my confession and my penance. Mrs. Whitmore set down the first page and picked up the next. Now for the specific bequests. To my executive team at Harper Innovations, James Nguyen, Laura Gonzalez, and Daniel Kim. I leave a collective bonus of $8 million to be divided equally in recognition of your years of service and loyalty. She continued down the list. Generous gifts to charities, scholarship funds in Elizabeth's parents' names, the company penthouse to James Nguyen, who'd apparently been Elizabeth's second in command for years. Then to my daughter, Sophia Elizabeth Brennan. Sophia straightened slightly, her eyes fixed on Mrs. Whitmore's face. Sophia, you are my greatest achievement and my greatest failure. I gave you every opportunity, every advantage, every chance to succeed. But I also taught you to value success over integrity, appearances over truth. I hope someday you can forgive me for that. I leave you the sum of $30, $1, for each year you've worked at Harper Innovations in the following message. Money you didn't earn corrupts. Leadership you haven't learned destroys. Start again as your father once did, and maybe you'll become the person you were meant to be. The silence that followed was absolute. Sophia's face had moved through several shades of white to something approaching gray. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. No words came out. The remainder of my estate, Mrs. Whitmore read, her voice steady and clear, including all shares of Harper Innovations, all properties, all investment accounts, all intellectual property rights, and all other assets totaling approximately $220 million. I leave to my former husband, Mr. Brennan, the only truly honest man I ever knew. The room erupted, not loudly. We were Canadians after all, and even shock was polite, but erupted nonetheless. Murmurs, exclamations, the scraping of chairs as people turned to look at me. I sat very still, my hands still folded on the table, and I felt nothing. Or perhaps I felt too much, and the sheer volume of shock, grief, vindication, and disbelief all canceled out, leaving behind only a hollow, buzzing numbness. That was the cost of a truth delivered too late. There's more, Mrs. Whitmore said, raising her voice slightly. The room quieted again. Mrs. Brennan left specific instructions. Mr. Carter, this is addressed directly to you. She withdrew a smaller envelope from her portfolio, cream-colored and sealed with wax. She slid it across the table to me. My name was written on the front in Elizabeth's distinctive handwriting, all precise angles and strong lines. She asked that you read this privately, Mrs. Whitmore said, but the rest pertains to the estate management, which I should explain now. She went on talking about trusts and tax implications and transfer procedures, but I wasn't listening anymore. I was staring at the envelope, at Elizabeth's distinctive, precise handwriting, at the ghost of her hand moving across the cream-colored paper. When had she written this? How long had she carried these words, this final, devastating truth, around with her, waiting for the right moment to finally speak them. I held the weight of it in my hands, a sealed confession. Part of me didn't want to open it, didn't want to hear her voice again, even through written words. Didn't want to feel anything at all. Didn't want to hear Elizabeth's voice again, even through written words. Didn't want to feel anything at all. But I broke the seal anyway. The letter was written in the same precise handwriting as the envelope, dated 4 months before her death. Dear Brennan, if you're reading this, then I'm finally free of the cowardice that defined my life. I wish I could say, this brings me comfort, but the dead have no comfort, only silence. This letter is not an apology. Words cannot undo what I've done to you. Consider it instead a confession, a testimony, a final accounting. I want you to know that I discovered I was dying 18 months ago. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. The doctors gave me 8 months. I've stretched it to 14 through sheer stubbornness and the best medical care money can buy. But even money has limits, and I'm at mine now. When I received the diagnosis, my first thought was relief. Not for myself dying is terrifying, Brennan, no matter how much you've lived, but relief that finally I would have an excuse to tell the truth. What was the company compared to death? What was reputation compared to meeting whatever comes next with a clean conscience? But even then I hesitated. I told myself I needed to arrange things properly, needed to ensure Sophia would be protected, needed to structure the company's succession. Lies. All of them. The truth is, I was still a coward, even facing death. It was Sophia herself who finally pushed me to act. 4 months ago, she came to me with plans to expand the company into AI development. She was so excited, so proud. She showed me her business plan, her projections, her strategy. It was brilliant work. She's always been brilliant, but there was something missing. Some core of integrity that should have been there. What if the technology gets misused? I asked her. What if it harms people? That's not our problem, she said. We're not responsible for how people use our products. And I realized I'd taught her that. I'd taught her that success justifies any cost. That business is immoral. That you do what you have to do to win. I'd taught her these things by example, by staying silent about what I'd done, by letting you take the blame. I made you into her cautionary tale, the weak man who stole because he wasn't strong enough to succeed legitimately. And she learned the lesson I'd intended. Be strong, be ruthless, never let sentiment get in the way of winning. I created a monster, Brennan, not Sophia. She's still capable of being the person she should have been, but the version of her I shaped, molded, trained to follow in my footsteps, that version is a monster, and it's my fault. So this will is not generosity, it's penance, it's strategy. It's my last attempt to be the mother Sophia deserved, even if she'll hate me for it. The money I'm leaving you, I know you don't want it. I know you'll probably give most of it away. That's fine. That's expected. But I'm also leaving you Harper Innovations. And there, I'm asking something of you. Don't let the company die. Don't sell it off in pieces or shut it down. It employs 4,500 people. It provides health care, pensions, opportunities. Those people are innocent of my crimes and yours. They deserve better than to be casualties of our war with ourselves. But also, don't let Sophia have it. Not yet. Not until she's earned it. Not until she understands what leadership actually means. Run it if you can. Hire someone to run it if you can't. Structure it however you need to. But please, Brennan, make it something worth inheriting. Make it a place where integrity matters, where people matter, where success is measured by more than profit, margins. Make it what it should have been from the beginning. If Sophia ever becomes the person she should be, the person I should have raised her to be, then give it to her. But only then. That's all I ask. I've also included documentation of my crimes, original bank statements, emails. memos, everything proving what I did. Give it to the authorities if you want. Clear your name officially. You've earned that right. Or keep it private and let the truth exist in the will. That's your choice. I don't know if there's an afterlife, Brennan. I don't know if I'll be judged for what I've done. But if there is, and if I am, I hope whoever is doing the judging takes into account that I loved our daughter. I loved her so much I was willing to destroy a good man to protect her. That love was selfish. That love was cowardice. That love caused irreparable harm. But it was love. I'm sorry. Those words are inadequate. I know. Sorry can't give you back 15 years. Sorry can't restore your reputation. Sorry can't rebuild your relationship with Sophia. Sorry is just a word, but it's all I have left to give you, along with money you don't want and a company you never asked for. Use them better than I did. Elizabeth. I read the letter 3 times, then folded it carefully and put it back in the envelope. My hands weren't shaking. My eyes weren't wet. I felt strangely calm, like I'd finally reached the end of a very long journey and found nothing there but air. Elizabeth was dead. The truth was out. Sophia knew what I'd done, what her mother had done, and I was suddenly, absurdly, impossibly wealthy. None of it felt real. I stood up, picked up the envelope, and walked to the window. The sun had fully set now, and Montreal's lights were beginning to shine like stars scattered across the ground. Somewhere in this city was the girl I'd once pushed on swings, the daughter I'd gone to prison for, the stranger who'd walked out of this room an hour ago with her whole world shattered. I should have felt triumph, should have felt vindicated, should have felt something other than this vast, empty tiredness, but all I felt was tired. The next week passed in a blur of paperwork and lawyers and accountants. Mrs. Whitmore was efficient within 5 days. I had access to accounts containing more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. Within 7 days, I had a majority stake in Harper Innovations and a board meeting scheduled to introduce myself as the new owner. Sophia didn't contact me. I didn't contact her. We orbited each other like binary stars. Too much history to collide. Too much gravity to escape. On Thursday, I met with the executive team at Harper Innovations. They were polite, professional, and clearly terrified. The disgraced ex-finance director had just become their boss. The man who'd supposedly embezzled from the company now owned it. Never mind that Elizabeth's will had cleared my name. People believed what they wanted to believe, and they wanted to believe the narrative they'd been told 15 years ago. I'm not here to run this company, I told them in the conference room that had once been Elizabeth's domain. I don't have the skills or the desire, but I am here to ensure it runs ethically. Mrs. Whitmore will be implementing oversight procedures, independent audits every quarter, ethics training for all executives, a whistleblower protection system that reports directly to the board, which I'll be chairing. James Nguyen, Elizabeth's former second-in-command, cleared his throat. And what about day-to-day operations? Who will be CEO? You will, I said. Interim CEO, pending board approval. You've been doing the job in everything but name for the past 5 years. Make it official. Relief flickered across his face. And Sophia? What about her? She's been vocal about contesting the will. She's been trying to get board support to challenge your ownership. I smiled, though it didn't reach my eyes. Let her try. The will is solid, and Sophia needs to learn something her mother never taught her. What's that? That some battles aren't worth winning. After the meeting, I walked through the building. My building now, though I could barely process that fact. Employees whispered as I passed. Some looked curious. Some looked resentful. None looked particularly happy to see me. I found myself on the top floor in what had been Elizabeth's office. It had been cleared out, no personal effects, no photos, no trace of her presence, except the faint scent of her perfume that still clung to the curtains. The office had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. I stood where Elizabeth must have stood thousands of times, looking out at her kingdom. Had she ever regretted what she'd done, or had she convinced herself it was justified, necessary, the cost of success? This kingdom was now mine. A poisoned crown laid on the head of a commoner. What did an honest man do with a $200 million lie? The company's success was built on a foundation of betrayal, a secret fault line running beneath the glittering glass and steel. To run it ethically was not just a mission, it was a high-stakes gamble. If I failed, Elizabeth's legacy would finally crumble, and I would have sacrificed 15 years of exile for nothing. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Can we talk?" I stared at it for a long time. 2 words and an initial. My daughter reaching out after 15 years of silence, asking for something she'd never had to ask for before. My time, my attention, my willingness to hear her. I could ignore it, could let her stew in her own confusion and anger, could make her feel a fraction of what I'd felt. Sitting in that prison cell, knowing my daughter thought I was a criminal. But revenge had never been my style. And besides, I was tired of carrying anger, tired of carrying anything. I typed back, "Saturday, 10 a.m. Cafe Blue on King Street." Her response came immediately. "I'll be there." Saturday arrived cold and bright, one of those autumn days where the sun shines but provides no warmth. I arrived at the cafe early, ordered a black coffee, and took a seat by the window. The place was busy with weekend crowds, students with laptops, couples sharing pastries, families trying to contain energetic children. Sophia arrived exactly at 10 high, punctual as always. She looked different, smaller somehow, less polished. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she wore jeans and a sweater instead of her usual power suits. She spotted me, hesitated, then walked over with the careful steps of someone navigating a minefield. "Hi," she said. "Hi, can I sit?" I gestured to the chair across from me. She sat, ordered a latte from the passing server, then folded her hands on the table in a gesture that reminded me painfully of myself. For a long moment, we just looked at each other. I tried to find traces of the little girl I'd known in this woman's face. She was there, hidden under layers of time and experience and hurt, but she was there. "I don't know where to start," Sophia said finally. "The beginning usually works." She smiled slightly at that, a ghost of the easy humor we'd once shared. "Which beginning?" There seem to be several versions, and I don't know which one is true anymore. "The true one," I said. "That's always the best place to start." She took a breath. "I remember you as the best dad in the world. You came to all my soccer games. You helped me build that volcano for the science fair. You taught me to ride a bike and told me it was okay to be scared, but I should try anyway. You made me feel like I could do anything. You could. You did. Then suddenly, you were a criminal. Mom said you'd been stealing from the company for years. She said you'd betrayed us, betrayed everyone. She showed me the bank statements, the transfers, the evidence. She said you'd confessed. I didn't want to believe it, but there was proof. Your confession, your guilty plea, prison. I remember. I was so angry, so confused. How could you throw away everything for money? We had money. We had success. What more did you need? I thought. She stopped, swallowed hard. I thought you'd loved money more than you loved us. The server brought her latte. She wrapped her hands around it, but didn't drink. Then Mom died, she continued. And that will, that letter. And suddenly, everything I thought I knew was a lie. You didn't steal anything. You sacrificed everything for me to protect my career, my future, and I've spent 15 years hating you for it. You didn't know, I said quietly. Your mother made sure you didn't know. But I should have. I should have questioned it, should have wondered, should have. Her voice cracked. You were my father. I should have believed in you. You were 30. Your mother was your hero, your boss, your mentor. She told you I was guilty, showed you proof. What else could you have believed? The truth? She looked up at me, eyes bright with tears. I should have believed the truth. The truth was hidden. Your mother made sure of that. I hate her for it. The words came out fierce, angry. I hate that she lied to me. I hate that she let you suffer. I hate that she built her empire on your sacrifice and never told me. I hate that she's dead so I can't scream at her. She was dying when she wrote that will. I said she had months to reconsider, to change it, to keep her secrets. She chose to tell the truth. That took courage. Too little, too late perhaps, but it's more than many people manage. Sophia wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, a gesture so young it hurt to watch. I've been trying to contest the will. Did you know that? James mentioned it. I hired 3 different lawyers. They all told me the same thing. It's airtight. Mom made sure of that. So I can't even fight it. Can't even pretend I have a leg to stand on. I'm just done. The CEO job I worked 15 years for, gone. The inheritance I expected, gone. The mother I thought I knew never existed. The father I hated for years, innocent. My whole life built on lies. She laughed, but it came out bitter. $30. That's what I'm worth. $1 for each year I worked at a company my mother built on fraud and my father's sacrifice. It's almost poetic. She wanted you to start over, I said. To learn what it means to earn something rather than inherit it. She wanted to punish me. Maybe. Or maybe she wanted to save you. Sophia looked at me, then really looked, her expression raw and searching. What do you want, Dad? You have the money, the company, everything. You could destroy me completely. You could make sure I never work in tech again. You could tell everyone what Mom did, what I didn't know. You could, I don't want revenge, Sophia. Then what? What do you want? It was a good question. What did I want? For 15 years I'd wanted nothing, had trained myself to want nothing, had learned to live small, need little, expect less. And now I had everything, and I still didn't know what I wanted. I want you to be okay, I said finally. I want you to learn what your mother never did. That integrity matters more than success. That who you are matters more than what you own. That some prices are too high. No matter what you're buying, how am I supposed to do that? I'm 45 years old. I don't know how to be anyone except who Mom made me. Then learn. Start over. Find out who Sophia Carter is when she's not Elizabeth Harper's daughter, or Mr. Brennan's victim, or Harper Innovation's CEO. Just Sophia. Just you. I don't know how I didn't either. I said 15 years ago, I was a convicted felon with no job, no money, no prospects. I had to figure out how to be human again from scratch. It wasn't easy. Some days it wasn't even possible. But I did it. How? By accepting that the old life was gone, that I couldn't get it back and shouldn't want to. By finding value in small things. Mrs. Nguyen's gratitude when I saved her $45 on her taxes. The Patel's invitation to their daughter's wedding. Liam texting me a photo when he graduated from University of Alberta. Small things, honest things, real things. Sophia was crying now, not trying to hide it. I don't know if I can do that. You can. You're stronger than you think. I'm really not. You came here today, I pointed out. That took strength. She smiled through her tears, or desperation. Sometimes they're the same thing. We sat in silence for a while, watching people pass on the street outside, a young couple holding hands, an old man feeding pigeons despite the "Do Not Feed" sign, a child chasing a balloon that had escaped her grip. What will you do with the company? Sophia asked eventually. Keep it running. Make it ethical. Try to turn it into something worth inheriting. And then what? Give it back to me. Maybe if you earn it. If you become someone who could run it with integrity instead of just ambition. She nodded slowly. That's fair. Your mother left you $30, I said. But I'm offering you a job. Entry-level administrative assistant in the ethics compliance department. Minimum wage. No special treatment. No fast track to management. Just work. Sophia's eyes widened. You're offering me a job if you want it. If you're willing to start at the bottom and earn your way up. If you can handle taking orders from people who used to report to you. If you can learn to value the work more than the title. That's humiliating. Yes. Everyone will know. Everyone will laugh. Probably. Why would you do that to me? I'm not doing it to you. I'm offering you a chance to do it for yourself. Your mother's will took away the life you thought you'd have. This is an opportunity to build a better one. But only if you want it. I won't force you. I won't pressure you. The offer stands open-ended. Take it or don't. She looked at her latte at the foam swirling in patterns on the surface. I need to think about it. Take all the time you need. She stood up, gathered her coat and purse, then paused. Dad. Yes. I'm sorry for not believing in you, for the years we lost, for everything. I stood too, faced her across the small cafe table. I'm sorry too for the burden you've carried, for the lies you were told, for not being there to help you become who you should have been. Can we? She hesitated. Can we try again? Not pick up where we left off? That's impossible. But start fresh. Learn who we are now. I thought about that. About whether forgiveness was possible. Whether trust could be rebuilt. Whether 15 years of silence could be bridged by intention and effort. We can try, I said. She smiled a real smile this time. Small but genuine. That's enough. Trying is enough. She left then, disappearing into the Saturday crowd. I sat back down, finished my coffee, and watched the city move around me. Montreal, the place I'd fled from, afraid to face what I'd lost. The place I'd returned to, and found that loss transformed into something strange and unexpected. I thought about Elizabeth's letter folded in my wallet, about her confession and her penance, and her hope that I'd use her money better than she had, about the company she'd built on fraud and sacrifice, now mine to reshape or destroy. I thought about Sophia walking through the streets of Montreal, trying to figure out who she was when everything she'd believed turned out to be false, about the job offer I'd made, the opportunity to become someone new. And I thought about myself. Mr. Brennan, age 65, former finance director, convicted felon, tax preparer for small businesses, and now absurdly, impossibly owner of $220 million empire. What would I do with it? The answer came slowly, like the inevitable breaking of dawn. I would do what Elizabeth had asked. Keep the company running, make it ethical, turn it into something worth inheriting. But I would also do more. I would use this absurd wealth to create second chances, scholarships for people with criminal records, job training for those re-entering society, legal aid, all the things I'd wished existed 15 years ago when I walked out of prison. I would turn Harper Innovations into a proving ground for Sophia. Not a gift, but an opportunity to earn what she thought she deserved. And I would keep my simple condo in Calgary, because those things were real in a way wealth never could be. They were earned, chosen, and lived. They were mine. The check I'd write Sophia for her first paycheck would be worth more than any inheritance. It would be the first dollar she'd ever truly earned, free from her mother's shadow and her father's sacrifice. And maybe eventually she'd understand that. Or maybe she wouldn't. Maybe she'd reject the job, reject the opportunity, reject the chance to start over. That would hurt, but it would be her choice, her life to live, her mistakes to make, her path to walk. I couldn't save her from herself any more than Elizabeth could save me from my choices, or I could save Elizabeth from hers. We all have to walk our own roads, make our own decisions, live with our own consequences. But I could offer her a map, a starting point, a first step. The rest would be up to her. I stood up, left money on the table for the coffee and a generous tip, and walked out into the autumn sunshine. The air was cold but clean, sharp against my face. Montreal smelled like car exhaust and roasting chestnuts and possibility. I had a flight back to Calgary that evening. Mrs. Nguyen needed her taxes finished. The Singhs wanted advice on incorporating their business. Liam was thinking about buying a car and wanted help understanding the loan terms. Small things, honest things, real things. But first, I had one more stop to make. Notre-Dame-des-Neiges Cemetery was quiet on Saturday afternoon. Just the wind and the distant traffic and the soft sound of my footsteps on the path. I found Elizabeth's grave easily. Fresh dirt, fresh flowers, and a simple granite headstone with her name and dates. The inscription, "She built empires, but forgot to build herself." I stood there for a long time. All the accusations, the regrets, the what-ifs, they all seemed small and pointless now. "I'll take care of the company," I said finally, my voice quiet against the wind. "And I'll take care of Sophia, if she'll let me." The wind rustled through the trees. "What is the empire you are building today, and what part of yourself are you forgetting in the process?" I waited as if Elizabeth might answer, but there was only silence. And maybe that was answer enough. But there was only silence, and maybe that was answer enough. I turned and walked back toward the cemetery gates, leaving Elizabeth's silence behind me. The world no longer felt like a battlefield, but a vast, open road. For 15 years, I had worn the armor of shame, believing my identity was fixed, a convicted criminal, a father who had failed. But the truth had set me free not from consequences, but from the lie itself. Standing there, holding the weight of a $220 million empire and a daughter's shattered trust, I realized the only thing I truly owned was the man I'd become in the quiet anonymity of my small condo. The simple acts, Mrs. Nguyen's gratitude, Liam's graduation photo, those were the true currency of life. This story, my journey from the gilded cage of corporate life to the simple dignity of a small accountant, is not about money. It's about reckoning. We all have a quiet tragedy we carry, a path we regret not taking, a truth we're too afraid to speak. Don't wait for a deathbed confession or a prison sentence to find your clarity. Ask yourself now, what lies are you carrying, and what is the real human cost? The worth of a man isn't in his holdings, but in his honesty. I chose to believe in second chances, for Sophia, for the company, and for myself. The plane climbing toward the sunset wasn't just carrying me west, it was carrying me forward toward the truth of who I had become. It's never too late to redefine your own ending. Choose courage, choose integrity, choose now.